The needle enters the skin, and something older than memory returns. In a quiet room above the Arctic Circle, a woman lies still while thin lines of soot dark thread pass beneath her flesh. Each stitch is a syllable in a language nearly silenced. This is Kakiniit, the traditional tattooing of the Inuit, and it is coming home. For thousands of years, Inuit women wore marks upon their faces, hands, and thighs. The lines spoke of lineage, of womanhood, of spiritual passage. A girl might receive her first tattoo at the onset of menstruation, another upon marriage, another after childbirth. The skin became a record of a life lived along the ice. The techniques were intimate and exacting. Skin stitching drew a sinew thread, blackened with soot and seal oil, through the surface of the skin using a bone needle. Hand poking tapped pigment beneath the flesh, dot by patient dot. Elder women, often relatives, performed the work in the warmth of the sod house or the tent. Across the vast Inuit homeland, the patterns varied. In what is now Nunavut, women wore V-shaped lines descending from the lower lip. In Greenland, dark bands framed the chin. In Alaska and Chukotka, intricate designs traced the wrists, the thighs, the shoulders. Each region carried its own visual grammar, its own signature of belonging. The tattoos were not decoration alone. They were prayers written into the body. Some believed the markings would guide a woman's soul across the sky after death, allowing her to enter the land of plenty. Without them, according to old stories, she might wander forever in a place of cold and mist. Then came the ships. From the late 17th century onward, whalers, traders, and missionaries pressed into the Arctic. They brought steel, tobacco, and disease. And they brought a scripture that read the tattooed face as heathen, as a mark to be scrubbed away in the waters of conversion. Moravian and Anglican missionaries reached Labrador, Baffin Island, and Greenland with a clear message. The old marks were forbidden. Women who wore them were shamed from the pulpit. Girls who might have received them were told, gently and firmly, that the practice belonged to a darkness the church had come to lift. In the 20th century, the pressure sharpened. Residential schools in Canada and boarding schools in Alaska took Inuit children from their families. Language, ceremony, and body practice were punished out of them. By mid-century, the last tattooed elders were aging, and no one was learning the stitch. By the 1970s, the practice had all but vanished from public life. Photographs in ethnographic archives showed women with weathered chins and steady eyes, their markings crisp against the black and white grain. But in the villages, the faces of the young were bare. A tradition thousands of years old stood at the edge of extinction, and yet it did not die. In kitchens and sewing circles, elders still spoke of the marks their mothers and grandmothers had worn. Stories were passed in fragments. The knowledge went underground, waiting for a generation with the courage to lift it back into the light. That generation began to speak in the early 2000s. Inuit scholars, artists, and midwives started asking what had been lost, and what could still be recovered. Among them was a young anthropologist from Nunavut named Alethea Arnaquik-Barrel. Her question was simple and enormous. Why should the marks be gone? In 2010, Arnaquik-Barrel released the documentary Tunniet, retracing the lines of Inuit tattoos. She travelled across the Arctic, sitting with elders, listening to what remained. The film became a catalyst. Watching it, Inuit women recognized something they had not been allowed to name, a hunger for their own faces. At the center of the revival stood a woman from Kugluktuk named Hovak Johnston. In 2016, she founded the Inuit Tattoo Revitalization Project. Her aim was direct: to bring the traditional markings back to Inuit women, using traditional methods in traditional communities, not in a tattoo parlor. In the home, Johnston traveled from settlement to settlement across Nunavut and the Northwest Territories. In community halls and living rooms, she gathered women who had waited a lifetime for this moment. Some were in their 20s. Some were in their 80s. Many wept as the first lines rose upon their skin. The revival is not only a matter of ink, it is a matter of hands. Practitioners like Holly Mitikwik Nordlum in Alaska have trained under Maya Sialuk Jacobson, a Greenlandic tattooist who reconstructed the old techniques from archival and ethnographic sources. The lineage, broken for a century, is being knotted back together. The work is slow and often painful. Skin stitching draws a thread through the dermis. Hand poking taps a single needle thousands of times. There are no machines, no shortcuts. The pain, practitioners say, is part of the meaning. It is a threshold, a marking of what the body has already survived. For many recipients, the tattoos are an answer to inherited grief. They speak of grandmothers taken to schools, of mothers taught to be ashamed, of a century in which Inuit women were told their faces were wrong. To wear the lines now is to refuse that verdict. It is to say plainly that the ancestors were right. The revival has spread far beyond the Arctic. Inuit women in Ottawa, Montreal, and Anchorage wear their Kakiniit into offices, universities, and courtrooms. Photographs circulate on social media. Young girls seeing tattooed aunts and teachers grow up understanding that the marks are not a relic. They are a living inheritance. There are debates too. Who may wear the markings? What patterns belong to which region? How to protect the practice from appropriation by outsiders drawn to its beauty. These conversations are unfolding in Inuit hands, guided by elders and practitioners who insist that revival must not become commodity. The needle enters the skin, and something older than memory returns. In the warm light of a northern kitchen, a grandmother watches her granddaughter receive the lines she herself was never allowed to wear. Outside, the wind moves across the ice as it always has. Inside, a language written in flesh is spoken once again.